A lot of people in the chat already mentioned in Bills Ravens aspects. Kendall, let's dive right into it. Baltimore Ravens versus the Buffalo Bills. Comeback win for the Buffalo Bills. Where's your head at focusing on this game right now? What's your biggest takeaway coming out of this game?
I mean, my first one is the Ravens choking away another lead. It's really hard.
This one is less egregious because it was first half based.
Yes, it is much less egregious, but it's still something to talk about because it's trending. It's 2 out of 4 games. You've seen this collapse. And yeah, like you said, this one is not nearly as egregious.
And they've lost 5 straight games at home now, which is a very interesting piece now. It was 4 coming into this game, and now with today, I believe it's 5.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of things to break down with this game, but I think that's the first thing that you kind of have to take away. Why are these breakdowns happening? What is happening with the Ravens in terms of giving away these leads, and why are they susceptible to this? And I think there are multiple factors specifically with this game, but I thought first and foremost, the Bills pass rush and secondary played a very good game. Even at the start of the game when everything was going wrong from an offensive perspective and you were putting the defense in bad positions, I still thought the pass defense, the pass rush, and the secondary was playing pretty solid football. But once the game got ugly for the Bills, I thought it was kind of easier for the Bills on defense to key in on those rundowns, those early downs, and get the Ravens into obvious passing situations. Because the Ravens are known to be this run-heavy team, and they still have the threat to pass, as we've seen from Lamar this year. Like this is borderline so far better than his MVP season. He still
Lamar
has a
going
threat
into this
in the
week.
pass game.
Lamar and Josh Allen were the top 2 for MVP for me heading into this week, and I don't know who's 1 or 2 because the offenses are different. But both offenses are we run through this one guy, everything goes as this guy goes.
Exactly. But to that point, they're a run-heavy team with the threat of the pass, and you have to respect that threat, so you can't necessarily sell out versus the run. No. However, at a certain point, when the game gets as out of hand as it was, where it was 20-3, as a defense, you can kind of afford to be sellout and kind of cheat the run a little bit. You can know, what do we have to lose? We're down 17. Might as well cheat the run when you know they're trying to run the clock away and get out of here with a victory. So you might as well cheat the run on early downs and force them into easy, obvious passing situations. And I thought that they did that really well, especially at the turn of the half. And they did a really good job the whole game taking away Mark Andrews. They really keyed in on him. Teron Johnson was staying physical with him. Dane Jackson was staying physical with him. And then obviously domino effect from there. Once Bateman got injured, things just got even more difficult for that Ravens passing attack, and it allowed the Bills to get even more narrowed in on how they were going to force them into those obvious passing situations. And then we even saw Leslie Frazier bring in some blitzes on key second downs or obvious passing downs, some Edgeman stuff. So I think this isn't just an obvious, the Ravens are malfunctioning because they're so good at running that game script actually kind of screws them in an inverse kind of way. I don't think there's this holistic one reason that the Ravens have choked twice so far this season. I think the first one was against the Dolphins was a lot of coverage busts, just kind of lapse in judgment. Yeah, they thought they had the game won.
Marlon Humphrey got injured late. He leaves the game.
And this one was much more very little circumstantial things just kept happening to the Ravens.
Bateman drop on 3rd down against Terrence Johnson. He cooks him, and Poyer is up. There's a chance that he takes it down to he could house it like he did against Miami, but there's an easy chance that he's taking that down to the Bills' 30-yard line.
Yeah, so I think although this is something that is a trend for the Ravens right now, just because of the sample size, and they're 2 out of 4 with chokes, but
they could easily be 4-0. That's so frustrating for them.
Exactly. I think a lot of it is circumstantial. And then obviously what happened against the Dolphins, I don't want to chalk it up and say fluky or anything like that, but it's in that vein to an extent. So I think this week was a lot of circumstantial things just kind of piling on, snowballing, and forming a domino effect that ended up in the Bills just becoming victorious. But I want to hear your thoughts too, and then I'll come back to my Bills takeaways from it.
It was another weird one. I I think the Baltimore Ravens are a good football team. I also hate a lot of people pile on, like when the Ravens lost to the Dolphins, and I saw a lot of people coming out being like, well, the Ravens defense is terrible. Like, look how bad they were last year. And it was like, yeah, but they lost Marlon Humphrey last year, and they lost Marcus Peters last year, and they had more injuries all over on that side of the ball. And then like ton of injuries on the offensive side. I just feel like a lot of the talk of the Ravens coming into this year, I feel like it didn't take into account the fact that I think last year they lost the most man games due to injury in NFL history. And they were all at key positions. Like, this team wants to run the ball. Cool. Lamar Jackson goes down. 3 or 4 of their starting 5 offensive linemen go down, and then some of their second stringers go down. Their first string running back, J.K. Dobbins, goes down. Their second string running back, Gus Edwards, goes down. Their third string running back, Justice Hill, goes down. Rashad Bateman was out for the beginning of the year with a hernia injury. All of these things kept happening, but when healthy, I thought this was a very good football team. And it's so weird to see them again have a game that looked pretty much in their hand. And what's even more concerning for them coming out of this game from a Ravens perspective, you're up 20-3 at home with the weather and game script in your favor. Like, you could not have really asked for a better start. Like, you're up and things are clicking for you on offense. Just do what you do and get out of there. And again, to your point, I think the Bills started doing a lot more run blitzes. You saw them selling out against the run. That's what resulted in Edmonds and Milano making plays in the backfield. You saw penetration. You saw push from the Bills front. They weren't getting out-gapped regardless of what the Ravens were doing, and they were able to contain Lamar and the run game at the same time. And then you take into, missing some opportunities. You also, I know Bills fans are upset about a lot of penalties that went against the Bills. You have a drop for Rashad Bateman on that Taron Johnson one. That was probably pass interference on Jordan Poyer on that little hitch route, that inbreaker on DeMarcus Robinson. So you're feeling a little hard done there if you're Baltimore. There's just a couple things, and I think this is an example of parity in the NFL. And they also said it on the broadcast. I thought was really well said. There are so many, because there's parity in the NFL. There's a couple plays in a game that if they swing right or they swing left, they can potentially change the outcome of the game. And several of those, as the game started to go on, kept going in the Bills' favor and were swinging away.
First, 25 minutes was Murphy's Law for any Bills fans.
Yes. You're sitting there. They don't call the hold on Dane Jackson. They have Lamar in the grass, but he gets out of it, throws it up. Milano tries to get the pick, but hits Andrews. Ball pops in the air. Duvernay catches it. Literally Murphy's Law for the Bills in the beginning, and then the pendulum swings back. Every action
roughing the passer. I don't know if that was roughing the passer. Josh Allen.
Josh acted that. He threw his head up, but again,
this is what you get when a quarterback starts becoming the face of the league, and you have to give him respect, especially on the heels of what happened to Tua and protecting quarterbacks' heads. And
I also think you have to look to the one earlier in the game. Patrick Queen he took the crown of his helmet and put that right into Josh's mouth. They didn't call that. I think this one was maybe a little makeup for that. Sure. But there was just a multitude of. This is funny. I love this comment from Chris. He says, tell them to open one pie on Sundays. I'm starving. It's all about demand of business. Sometimes they sell out during the week. That's how good they are, Chris, but I appreciate you. I got one pie on Friday. It was amazing, but I digress. One pie pizza, just in case anybody doesn't know, best pizza in Buffalo, New York. Go get yourself some. There's all those momentum swings kept going away from the Ravens, away from the Ravens. Actually, here's a good one too. Yeah. I don't know how this wasn't called. I don't care if McKenzie was making a football move or not. He got nailed in the face, which is not allowed. And got concussed. Head snap back. Good comment there from Tim. But these plays just seem to keep going, into the Bills' favor in somehow, some way. So I think the Ravens are a little snake bit from a luck perspective, but also the Bills, I think, put them in that position to have bad luck. The Bills went and they took this game, they adjusted. I thought they retooled and made some good adjustments. But Baltimore, I think, again, you're sitting there and you're looking at a lot of situational pieces. Like this is such a perfect example of the smallest thing can change a game. The Bills have a great punt from Sam Martin to start the fourth quarter. The Ravens start that drive on their own 9-yard line or around their 10.
Something like that, yeah.
And they go on a 9-minute drive and take it down to the 2 or 3 yard line. And you're thinking oh man, this game's 2020. They're about to go on over a 90-yard drive, over 8-9 minutes on the clock, and it's going to end up with points. I'm glad for this, RJ. RJ says Packers win. That means I'm alive in my survivor pool. Appreciate you, RJ. I was sweating this one out. Thank you so much. And you're thinking at least, okay, like they'll probably get 3 at the least, or they're probably going to get a touchdown. They end up going for it on 4th down. They don't get it. And again, that margin of error, awesome pick by Poyer. Duvernay was wide open to start.
Oh, yeah. He's seen earlier. It's not a pick. It's a touchdown.
Wide open. They're playing. It's either cover 2 or it's quarters. But either way, Poyer has to get over the top. Poyer goes towards the middle, and he literally has to speed turn and turn his back to Lamar and book it to the corner. Duvernay's wide open. Lamar just didn't see it. I think that's when Lamar was getting flushed from the pocket, and he just couldn't make that play. But all those little things, like that drive was such a microcosm of how things can swing one way for one team and swing in favor of the other. So if you're Baltimore, you're frustrated as hell because you're 2-2. You very easily and realistically should be at least 3-1. Easily could be 4-0. And if you're the Bills, you're thinking the same thing. Well, we're 3-1. We should probably be 4-0. But I think the Bills earned that game. My biggest takeaway again is the run game for the Bills is extremely concerning for me. I don't think
that was my point I was going to come back to. So I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, that's a great point from you, but mainly because it's a point that I have, so, no, it's just so readily available. Like we've talked about it all offseason. I just don't think it's sustainable to ask Josh Allen to be Batman on every single play. And when I say sustainable, I mean, in order to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
because you just can't ask someone to do that. If you're going to put the weight of the world on someone's shoulders for 18 regular season weeks, 17 games, and then you're going to go into the playoffs and ask them to do that again, that person eventually is just going to wear down. Not to mention the schematic disadvantage that you're at, because eventually teams are going to have everything that you do on tape, and they're going to be able to scheme against you and play against you. I just don't think that is a sustainable model to continue to just ask Josh Allen to do everything. This running game has to get going in some form or fashion. And I think we're in a situation again right now, similar to last year, where I don't think this offensive line running the ball is good enough to elevate the running backs. And I don't think any of the running backs are good enough to elevate the offensive line consistently.
So
you're sitting there. Yeah. So you're just sitting there being like, who is it? Like, even if the Bills traded for Saquon, I think Saquon is a tremendous upgrade to any of the running backs the Buffalo Bills have. I don't know how productive Saquon Barkley is going to be, because there's a lot of runs. We talked about it last week. We talked about it off air this week. Everybody loves to, crap all over Zach Moss. And when Singletary has a bad run, it's because the line is bad. When Moss has a bad run, it's because Moss sucks. And I don't think that's true. The Bills' offensive line just is not getting pushed. Yes, Devin Singletary's skill set allows you to work around that a little bit more because he has some shiftiness to him. But he's not a world beater that's making a difference on every play. And like you said, the Bills are stuck in this negative feedback loop. And it's just very hard. We saw it early in this game. What were the Ravens doing? Coming out, pressing these Bills receivers, giving them nothing easy underneath, playing the weather, playing over the top, and saying, go ahead, try and find space underneath us to throw the football. And the Bills couldn't, and it was a problem. And the pass rush wasn't getting there. So what were they doing? They were just putting their hands up and using their length and using their size and getting deflections and tip balls and potential interceptions. That's another one, too, if you're the Ravens, right? That one ball gets deflected and falls right into Patrick Queen's hands, and he drops it. So many snake bit opportunities, but I digress. You have to get the run game going. You have to make something simpler for the Bills' offense at some point. You cannot continue to just be like, well, we're just going to have Josh drop back a ton and just throw it. At some point, it doesn't have to be a lot. I'm not asking for like 5 yards a clip and 6 yards a clip. I'm just asking for, like, if you run it on first down, just give me to 2nd and 7 or 2nd and 6 consistently. Yeah. That's it. If it's 3rd and 1, I'd like to be able to run the ball for a yard and be able to get the first down. Just something that keeps them honest. Chris, this is an interesting one. Kendall, what's your thoughts on this? Chris comes in and says, Singletary has been sneakily awesome out of the backfield lately. We need to start talking extension. I personally don't feel that way for as far as, like, that he's the long-term guy. I think he's been the best option out of the backfield. I don't think he's shown that he's this world beater and needs to be the running back of the future. But what are your thoughts on that, Kendall? Because I know there's a lot of – we're talking run game, and there's a lot of contention amongst Bills fans that Singletary needs to get all this work and everybody else needs to be jettisoned into the sun. What's your thoughts?
I like how you put that. I think Singletary is obviously the best back that we have in this group.
Yeah.
But I am not in the position to extend him. I think I think the best reason you would extend him is if he's going to come back on a figure that's close to a rookie deal. Like, why would you want to put your eggs in that basket if you still have two guys on a rookie contract and you could potentially just draft a third one next year or the year after that? I think Brandon Beane has proven that he's on this philosophical model of keep your running back position on the rookie deal as much as possible and spend everywhere else, because you can get a dime a dozen type of running back and elevate his play with good offensive linemen. So I don't think that's in the plans. I could be wrong because these are more like my plans projected onto Brandon Beane.
If he comes back at like if he comes back at like a $2 million a year deal or like $3 million,
that's what I mean. But I also think he would merit a little bit more than that on the open market. But the open market is a little bit weird with running backs because most of the league undervalues running backs.
That's very fair. This backfield is so. Oh, we got to stop. Chris, we're going to come back to this. But I like where your head's at, Chris. Silas with another super chat. Thank you very much, Silas. You were paying for us to keep the lights on in this one. Oh, and Chris had a good follow-up question too. We got a lot of activity. Like it. Like the energy. Silas, thank you very much for your super chat again. Silas says, when we put Josh under center, teams are pressing outside and stacking the box. Gabe Davis can seal and get Brown in space with Motor behind him off tackle. The Bills, I was looking at these numbers last night. The Bills have been successful in their runs to... So I'm looking at it from PFF, so you know their runs by direction. And left tackle runs and right tackle runs are defined as the ones outside the right tackle and outside the left tackle. The Bills had their highest yards per carry and average in those areas. So when they have been able to get outside and get into space, it's worked. I think a lot of it, though, comes from those crack tosses and those abilities.
They've been working this year. Yes, the crack tosses have really been working.
I just think they need more gap scheme in general.
That was my second point on my notes for this running game.
Go with
it. It needs to go back to gap zone or
pin and pulls, power, counter.
With zone runs, it just hasn't. First off, zone runs have not been working this year. You see too much penetration from defensive linemen.
Can I make a comment on that real quick?
About zone runs, yeah.
You know what's really important on zone runs? I said this in the film room last week. Double teams, right? You know what's an important part of double teams? Chemistry. You and I, I'm the guard, you're the tackle, us blocking that 3-tech and knowing which one of us is going to pull off and climb to the second level. Right. That takes chemistry. When you don't get chemistry, when Spencer Brown misses a ton of offseason time and Ryan Bates misses a ton of offseason time and Roger Saffold misses time and Mitch Morse has gotten hurt and Deion Dawkins has missed time. They don't have the chemistry to run these double teams and run, which is a core. There's many core pieces. Well, some core pieces for zone blocking. One of them is that double team piece. There was a snap last week. I think they're blocking Sealer, number 92 for Miami. And it's an inside zone run. And Bates and Brown block him. They both leave him and climb to the second level, and he just comes into the backfield and makes the tackle. Like, it's those little things. And I think it'll come. It's just a matter of, does it come in week 5 or does it come in like week 15? That chemistry piece, you need chemistry and you need to be able to generate push. They're not getting either. And I think that's why the zone run is struggling. Continue.
I think it's, no, you're right though. That is a part of it. But the other part that I've been noticing is the fact that when you do run zone and you have a hat on a hat and it's just, okay, everyone do their 111th, everyone win their one-on-ones. Our offensive linemen aren't winning their one-on-ones. When you have 5 guys across and 2 out of the 5 are losing their one-on-ones, that zone run is busted. And I think a way to kind of mask that deficiency is to get these guys in gap scheme and create a scheme that puts them into positions where, okay, they're in a good space with leverage and you see this guy pulling across and it's an obvious, okay, you get this guy in space, this guy's pinned down, this guy's whatever it is, this scheme is helping put these offensive linemen into positions where they're going to win their one-on-ones and put the running backs in positions where the run lanes are just obvious. They're obvious holes that you have to run through. And like you said, like you always say with zone runs, like it is a create your own adventure.
Yeah.
When the adventure starts 3 yards in the backfield, there's not much creating to do. It's just, oh, okay, I'm going to sit down here and try to get -1 yards.
It's like the adventure is like, man, we're going to go like exploring the jungle and the bus is going to take us there. And then you get on the bus and it breaks down and you're just like, well, this adventure sucks. I don't want to play anymore. And yeah,
exactly. And then you see like the crack tosses and it's like, oh, this adventure has a big number 73 running 5 yards past the line of scrimmage and he's going to take someone out in front of me. very obvious adventure. Like it's just, I don't know. I really would like to see this offense get to a bit more gap scheme, or at least balance it. If it's not going to be more gap over zone runs, at least balance it to the point where we can see a little bit of both.
Yeah, they were coming into this week, I believe it was like over 60% zone runs on the year. They were really leaning into that piece, which we kind of anticipated to a degree, given Aaron Kromer's history, but it's just not clicking in that way. And I wanted to go back to Chris's other comment in his follow-up saying, sure, but which other running back has worked in this offense consistently? That's my whole point. Like, I don't think it's a I'm going to go back to the point I made earlier. Like, the offensive line isn't good enough to elevate the running backs, and the running backs aren't good enough to elevate the offensive line. None of them, which is why I think I have frustration with when Singletary has a bad run. It seems like everyone's like, man, the offensive line sucks. But when Moss has a bad run, it's like, man, Zach Moss sucks. I think we're in this situation where the blocking, whether it's scheme or individual play, usually it's a bit of both, like Kendall, like you mentioned there. It's hard to evaluate any of these running backs with what's going on with this offensive line. They're giving up push. They're giving up penetration. There's just a lack of performance and execution. You don't have anything to be able to hang your hat on. And I'm going to continue to bang this drum because I banged it all effing off season. You need a pivot. You can't sit and drop back and pass it 63 times a game or pass it to this 80-20 ratio and just expect you're going to drop back and sling it all over the field, especially now with how teams are reacting and building their defenses in this too high world. And you're seeing the secondary skill, you're seeing more quarters, you're seeing more match coverages and how teams are changing the pre to post snap picture. You need to be able to have a pivot, and that pivot for the Bills is the run game. I think it's always a mixture, right? Like, if the run game is struggling, you can't sit there and go like, man, it's all O-line, or man, it's all running backs. I do think it is more O-line than running backs at this point. The good news is I think it can get better. I think the more this group plays together, you will see more success. And we saw some of that today. I mentioned it even on the Singletary fumble. That was a good run. He got like 7 yards. I know he fumbled, so that makes it a bad run. I'm talking before the fumble. Nice lane, hole. You had some successful runs down the stretch. You had the Zach Moss adjustment last week where that was what I thought was very encouraging from Moss's run against Miami, which is part of the reason why I don't want to give up on him. Granted, yes, it's just one run, but he had an inside run similar to that earlier in the game, and he went inside and got mushed. They run that same look in the second half there, and he gets it, and instead of even looking inside, he bounces it immediately, shakes the corner, and he takes it up on the outside. That's him playing above the scheme and playing above the blocks. That's what we need to see more of. But the problem is you're asking running backs who aren't built to play above the scheme to play above the scheme so much and so often
also,
because of the execution up front.
You're asking them to do that without even giving them a lot of opportunities to do that because of the way that this offense runs. And the way I kind of want to answer this is actually with someone in the chat. Walter came in and said, all the running back chatter is pointless.
I love it. He's just like, burn it.
They've all been unimpressive. And this is, I mean, I don't want to go to the point of unimpressive, but I am in this mold where it's like, why are we even talking about who's good, who's great, who should be cut, who should be traded? They've all been just sufficient to just this entire season. No one's really broke away and said, I am the best running back. I still think that Singletary is the best running back, but he hasn't had any game-breaking. Like, he had 9 receptions last week, but that wasn't on the ground. Like, anything running backs running the football has been a struggle for this offense since like 2020. And we heard Charles Davis mentioning this the entire time on the broadcast. The Bills need to find a way to get these running backs going in the run game, take pressure off of Josh Allen. And then you think back to what the Eagles did today against the Jaguars and how much pressure it took off of Jalen Hurts. It's a way to create sustainable success on offense by shifting the focal point for defenses, shifting what that defense has to be like. Oh, okay, let's focus on Josh Allen this game. Oh, wait, no, they're giving it to Singletary a ton. It doesn't. We can't do that though, because we haven't shown anything on tape that shows, oh, Singletary is a threat out of the backfield when the Bills are in gun offset right. Like, there's nothing that tells you that you need to look out for this look.
And those
in a run game.
RPOs that everybody was loving against Tennessee, when everybody's like, this should be the Bills' run game. These just awesome 7-yard quick outs to Stephon Diggs. Great. That doesn't work when the defense goes, oh, they're just going to keep doing that and they can't run. Cool. Let's just move up and challenge these wide receivers. Exactly. Miami did it. Baltimore did it. Those aren't available. Now, there's ways around it. Do you go quick screen? Do you go with some tunnel screens? Do you go any type of screen action or type of delayed action? Today. We did. We saw that work several times, both the Singletary. Once in a spread look where Singletary's the boundary receiver coming in on that tunnel screen, one with just a regular running back screen out of the backfield. They need to get more creative with those extension of the run game plays. But at the end of the day, they have to get creative because the run game isn't working, and the run game needs to work. I'm not going to go and say the Bills have to be able to run the ball every game to like win a championship, but they
need to be available.
Yes, the threat needs to exist. I love where Pops has had it already. He says the film room, please fix the run. Yeah, that might be something we dive into. Yeah, you're going to need to have that pivot, especially as you get into. Today was a good example, right? The weather that you saw today is playoff football weather, and if you're playing outside in Buffalo. Or we don't know who's going to win the AFC, and in terms of like who's going to be the 1 seed, 2 seed, 3 seed, so on and so forth. But all these teams, unless you're playing the Chargers in LA in their dome, the weather you saw today is a very realistic possibility for what? Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, Cincinnati.
The one thing I will say about that, though, and I know the whole point you're trying to make, I'm going to play devil's advocate. The whole point you're trying to make is that you have to be ready to run the football in inclement weather because it's just easier to run the football. It's harder to throw the football in that kind of weather. I think Josh Allen throws the football in that kind of weather better than 30 other quarterbacks in the NFL.
Oh, for sure.
So I think there is a bit of a competitive advantage for the Bills in that regard, but it is still difficult for him to do it in that weather relative to in a dome.
That's my point is like can he do it? Sure. Is it harder? Yes. What are we trying to do? Make things easier for Josh Allen just at some point. And the weather piece is just an additive on top of you just need to be able to run the ball. Look what happened when Odell, I mean, granted, they won the Super Bowl, but Odell goes out in that Super Bowl, and the Bengals just looked around and went, oh, let's just double team Cooper Kupp, and then they can't run the ball on us, and we'll see what happens. And the Rams damn near should have lost that game. Granted, they had a ridiculous call that didn't get called on T. Higgins. It went for a touchdown. But I've gone through the numbers so much with the DVOA teams last year, the top passing teams having close or in like a top 10, top 8 rushing DVOA offense. You need that pivot. And I think the Bills are at a point. It's not lost. We're a quarter of the way into the season, and a lot of the issues for the Bills' offensive line are chemistry-based. I think as they continue to play together healthily, fingers crossed, they will get better. But it's tough right now. We're seeing, again, for another week where you're seeing points for this Bills offense where everything is just stagnant and everything is just, it's sludge. It's like they're stuck in the mud and they just can't get going, and you just need some sort of simplification. You need an easy button, and the Bills are losing that easy button because they don't have that run game. Now, maybe they're keeping that card or that bullet in the chamber because that run game is going to be Josh Allen and, QB Powers and QB Bash come down the stretch, and they're not using it now. So maybe they're not putting it on tape. Maybe they don't want to run Josh Allen into the ground now, and they're trying to keep him fresh and use that down the stretch and into the playoffs. And if that's the case, cool, fun. I like it, but it would still be nice if they could run the ball with their running backs because the position starts with the word running, and it's not working, and it's a little frustrating.
Makes defense life harder. You just have to spread them even thinner than they're already spread with this passing attack. And like you said, adding Josh Allen as a runner, it spreads them even thinner. But if you add the running back as a runner, it spreads them even thinner than that. You just need to keep adding pressure to the defense.
You need to be able to loosen up. I said it multiple times on Twitter today, like, if defenses are going to play you how defenses are playing the Bills, you got to be able to loosen up, and stretch them a little bit. So you can either do that by pushing the ball vertically, which the weather kind of limited the Bills for a large portion of today doing that. Or you can stretch the front part of the defense by running the ball and making teams come up or hitting them underneath or generating explosives underneath and making them work. So that way it opens up that intermediate and it opens up that chunk play territory. Instead, defenses for the most part are able to just cap and keep things over the top and put a roof on things, and they're just playing everything underneath, and you've got good athletes who are able to rally and tackle and move to the football. And you're going to have another defense next week in Pittsburgh who's a very stout defense. They play the run hard. They're good against the pass. They have, in my opinion, I don't know, Jordan Poyer's playing at an elite level, but I think Minkah Fitzpatrick is the best safety in all of football. You got a lot of studs on that Steeler defense, and you're just giving up. I think the problem too is when you look at it, and I mentioned this statement a lot, you're giving up push and penetration in the run game. And though either one of those can be bad on their own, they're giving them both up in tandem over and over and over. And it's hard for any running back to get anything going. Singletary, Moss, Cook. There are some schematic ways to go around it. I've detailed several on Twitter. I don't want to get into the weeds of it too much because we'll hijack this episode, but it's something that needs to be fixed. And if you want potential solutions, feel free to tweet at me at pro__ant or Kendall at Mirsky Kendall, because we have a lot of thoughts on this issue because it's near and dear to our hearts. And we have been talking about the run game and the offensive line this entire year. And I also want to, I don't want everybody to, again, like to think it's all doom and gloom. I think this offensive line will get better. It's just a matter of how quickly. Are they going to be better next week? Or are they going to be better by week 15 or week 10 or by the playoffs? It's just a matter of what does that trajectory look like.
They have all the pieces to do it. They just need to do it.
They do. And I have faith in Aaron Cromer still. So we'll see what happens coming out of the game. Also, huge kudos to Leslie Frazier being able to change the pre to post snap picture in this game.
He has the Ravens number. He has the Ravens number.
He really called a very good game, schemed a lot of things up, and the Bills executed. I'm very excited for the All-22 to see. Also, there was a comment earlier I wanted to get to. Somebody asked about Kaiir Elam. I don't think Kaiir Elam is doing bad at all. I also don't think he's crushing it. I think they've been playing coverages that have given him help, and he's also not being tested. So I don't want anybody to think that I think Kaiir Elam is playing bad. I don't think he's playing amazing, and he's this all-pro, all-world guy. I will say he's been playing solid. He looks like he could be putting some things together, in my estimation. Kendall, I don't know.
He can hang. He can hang. That's really where I am right now. He can hang, and I'm not too worried about him being in the lineup or anything like that, but I haven't seen anything that tells me, oh, he's going to go out there and make plays above the scheme. Like we always talk about, leave his zone, leave his area, leave his man because he sees the quarterback's eyes, things like that. He's still kind of playing within the scheme, within what his responsibilities are, and kind of sticking to that, making sure he can check all of those boxes before he kind of goes rogue and does things that he's probably athletically able to do, but he's got to build everything up in the mental repertoire as well.
I will say his speed is showing up against the run and in support plays. His ability to rally to the football. There was a run today. Dobbins bounces it to the outside, and Elam is flat-footed, but he turns and gets on his giddy-up, and he beats Dobbins to the sideline and forces him out. I like the way Kaiir Elam is showing up.
Justice Hill once or twice too today.
He did. You're seeing that real speed and that athleticism be a factor. Chat 69 XYZ best adult dating site. Appreciate your view. Oh, they're gone. I think his athleticism is showing up. I really like the way he's playing against the run, but I think as far as a coverage standpoint, I don't think I've seen enough to be like he's crushing it and locking it down. The Bills are playing a lot of zone. He's not being tasked with a lot, and he's also not getting action. We will see what happens when Trey White comes back, and then what does Dane and Kaiir look like? How healthy is Trey White? Because usually teams don't throw at Trey. They throw at Levi or Dane or whoever that number 2 is. So we're going to see some options.